Hello and welcome to the Republic of Football. I'm your host, Ishmael Johnson, alongside staff writer Carter Yates. What's up, man?
I know this is a college football podcast, but I am so excited for the Texas high school football playoffs. It's week one. It feels like Christmas morning.
It does, because this is a playoff I am excited for, unlike college football. I've spoken my piece on the anti-expansion of college football playoff, but these are the playoffs that I actually like.
Yeah, we thought the election last Tuesday was going to be contentious. I thought what was more contentious was the college football playoff rankings that dropped last Tuesday.
Yeah, that we'll get into a little bit of that because we have kind of our discussion piece. Of course, everyone's favorite map, Mallory Hartley on the other side. Hi, Mallory.
Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit for a little bit of a breakdown.
Didn't answer my question.
I'm good, Mallory.
I already answered your question.
No, you didn't.
I said it was like Christmas morning when I first started off.
Okay, well, but I wasn't the one asking the question.
I'm good.
I opened two presents, and it's Argyle versus Frisco Emerson and Salina versus Wilmer Hutchins.
Are you going to those games this week?
Yeah, so that's how I'm doing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm opening Wolf City.
Where are you
and
going?
Coleman. So
Say that again.
Wolf City and Coleman.
Nice.
And Godly. Hopefully see H.D. Davis.
Nice. I love
So,
that.
by the way, texasfootball.com/playoffs, if you are a high school fan listening to this college show or happen to just stumble upon one of our many live broadcasts right now going on across our social platforms, texasfootball.com/playoffs, everything you'll need from now until state, and then we'll convert over to our state hub when state comes around.
You can go to @IshmaelR.Johnson and rip him up for his predictions if you would like.
Yeah, it's cool.
On Twitter.
Listen, here's the difference.
Is that the only handle to go rip people at, or
Yes.
is there another handle?
I'm turning your mic off.
Anyway. Carter can't talk all of a sudden. No. Look, I'll say this. Some people who are afraid to are afraid to stick with their predictions, are afraid to stand up. I will absolutely tell you that I don't care what you think about my predictions. I am very much an antagonistic person on social media. So
yeah, there's this meme that Ashley and Vianney and I have been laughing at recently. It's Sid the Sloth. It actually was a Carson Beck meme. But now we just have it as one of our own. And I sent it to them last night, and I said, he looks really sad, and I sent it to them last night. I said, this is me reading through all the mean comments that people have made about our predictions. Because it's a lot.
That or Carson Beck after his third interception.
That was literally the meme. That was the meme.
Oh, God, that's great. Okay, on today's show, of course, we will go through our spotlight games. We will talk about the lightning round, all that stuff, Power Poll. And also, we will have, since it's a little bit of a light week, we will have a little bit of a discussion piece. Carter mentioned the college football playoff. There are three teams theoretically still in contention for I keep saying high school playoffs because it's on my mind.
I know.
For the college football playoffs, we're going to talk about what would prevent each of those three teams from making the college football playoff. Texas A&M, and SMU specifically. We'll go into that as our discussion piece. But let's see. I'm trying to think. Let's go to the Power Poll really quick, Mallory, before we hit a break from our sponsors.
Don't have the Power Poll.
Yeah, that's on me. I didn't know we didn't have the Power Poll. There wasn't that much movement.
There wasn't that much movement. Basically, Texas, SMU, and A&M still the top three. SMU and Baylor at 4 and 5 as well. Hopefully this week we'll start. We'll see. But
are you implying something?
Am I implying something? I'm just saying. We'll just see how the weekends go. I'm not saying anything. Nobody's going to lose or anything. We'll see. Nobody let me down. We'll get into our discussion piece in a bit, but before we do, we have a special word from our friends at Be Well Texas.
Be Well Texas helps people who are struggling with the use of alcohol or drugs. They offer high-quality, science-based addiction treatment and recovery services anywhere in Texas. Find help for you or a loved one today.
Welcome to Be Well Texas. We're glad you're here. In many cases, there is no cost for treatment if you don't have insurance. Call 888-85-BE-WELL.
Thanks again to our friends at Be Well Texas. All right, Mal, if you would throw up the home field graphic really quickly, I can tell everyone about our friends. As the weather is getting a little bit cooler, you may be looking for some new hoodies, some pullovers, some long sleeve shirts, however you want, or maybe just need a new refresher on a t-shirt of your favorite college football program. Please use our promo code if you do. Promo code DCTF, all four of those letters, gets you 10% off your first time purchase at Home Field Apparel, the best vintage college merch on the market. I mentioned their Campus Classic pullovers, which are the things that are the newest things that are starting to be rolled out, but they also have vintage 80s, 90s style coaches jackets from the sidelines. I see a Baylor one right here. I'm actually just scrolling on the page right now. Looks actually pretty sick. The classic BU, Baylor University script on the back. Of course, you've seen me in my Lamar hoodie if you've seen this show a couple times. Tepper, of course, has his Western Kentucky hoodie. I might be getting a new hoodie. I'm trying to figure out who I want next. I don't know yet. Might be Baylor. I don't have anything Baylor related. Might be TCU. I don't have anything TCU related, so maybe one of those programs. If you want any of the 13, except for Texas State and Sam Houston, I believe are the only two FBS programs not on there right now. I'm trying to make some calls to make that happen because I'm tired of seeing UNT and UTSA and no Texas State up there. So if you are a college football fan and want a refresher on your merch, promo code DCTF for 10% off your first time purchase. All right, Mallory, let's talk about our first discussion. Carter, this is your idea. I'll give credit where credit is due. The sentence I'm going to start to open this topic is Texas. We'll start with Texas. Texas will not make the college football playoff because Carter.
The offensive line is struggling. And okay, let me caveat this with they just were announced as Joe Moore Award semifinalists. So you might be thinking, why the hell is this the Achilles heel that the Longhorns could have? Well, outside of the Vanderbilt-Georgia games, they've been fantastic. They've allowed 7 sacks all year. But in that Vanderbilt and Georgia game, probably the two best front sevens they faced, they allowed 11 sacks. And I was rewatching those games, specifically the offensive plays. I counted up, of those 11 sacks, 7.5 came from a linebacker or a defensive back. So it's not that the Texas offensive line is getting physically manhandled or just losing one-on-one matchups. They're just getting confused a lot. I think in those games, Georgia and Vanderbilt has found the formula of disguising blitzes and rolling down linebackers. And this isn't a novel concept, right? But you're starting to see cracks in that offensive line in how you can beat this Texas team.
I'll say this. I think I agree with that because, and by the way, this discussion piece isn't like us saying they're going to miss. This is like, if they don't make the playoff, this is why. Right?
If they don't make the championship, the playoff.
The playoff.
Yeah.
Mine was more about the playoff. I think championship. There's a lot of things that can go wrong for them not to make the playoff.
If they don't make the
championship,
if they don't make the playoff, it's because Nick Skirton and the Texas A&M front seven just got after their butt all night.
Maybe. I'll say this also. You mentioned Georgia and Vanderbilt. I agree. I also would say Oklahoma for about a quarter, right? Maybe a quarter and a half. The Oklahoma offense obviously couldn't get going, and then you can't really hold that offense in check for 100% of the time. But I thought if Oklahoma had a manageable offense, I think that game's at least interesting going into halftime. Definitely, by the end of a little bit longer than what it was. But I thought that they came out decently against Texas. And on the offensive line, it's not that we're saying it's not good, right? You mentioned the top-level talent that they faced and struggled against, right? I think that outside of Kelvin Banks, who, again, we can throw out the Georgia game because Jalen Walker, you're going to get beat. Even if you're a franchise left tackle eventually, you're going to get beat by a franchise pass rusher potentially.
And one of those sacks wasn't his fault,
no, it wasn't. That's fine. Outside of him, he's been the one that I can say has been, I'd say 90, 95% pretty good the whole year, lived up to his hype. DJ Campbell struggled a bit this year, right? The interior offensive line in particular struggled a bit. The run game, I know it has to do with injuries a lot of the time too, because there's not the talent, the consistent depth there at running back to maybe shake off a couple of those bad blocks, to maybe make some room for yourselves. They're relying probably a lot more on those holes being created.
Real quick on that, this is why I've always said, as a guy who watched Texas and paid attention to them growing up, Bijan Robinson is the best running back I've ever seen, and I will be 80 years old telling you how Bijan Robinson was the best running back Texas ever had, because the amount of tackles he forced, missed in the backfield. He had to get 3 yards, he had to make 2 tackles miss in the backfield.
Sure, yeah.
And they don't have that guy this year.
So I'll say this. I think it's going to be, you mentioned A&M, of course, that game's building up to Nick Skirton and that whole thing. That's going to be an incredible game. Outside of that, though, I'm not totally sure that this offensive line gets pushed again until that game, right? And even
Arkansas isn't doing it. Maybe Landon Jackson,
maybe Landon Jackson, but again, that's one player, right? As opposed to like a front seven. But A&M, I'll say, is the one team you have to worry for. And at that point, there's a reason why I think Texas has the inside track, because even if you lose the A&M game, right? Okay, you maybe don't make the SEC championship. We'll get to another team in a bit. ACC is probably just getting one. Big 12 is probably just getting one. They may get in anyway with 2 losses.
Yeah, that is very true.
So again, this is us finding reasons why, or reasons.
Nitpicking Texas is the segment title.
Yes, basically.
Nitpicking Texas and Texas A&M.
Yeah. But again, that is the weakness with this team so far. The consistent weakness, I would say, that you can look at and say, ooh, that thing. Like, I would love for them to have played Ole Miss this year.
That would have been
Miss's
a banger.
front seven would have been incredible.
Awesome.
Right, versus this offensive line. I think Texas is a better team, but like Ole Miss specifically, their front seven would have been a great matchup for Texas. So
we should have named this segment actually
the nerdy
inserting
guy
yourself
putting
at
up his glasses.
yeah.
Actually, Texas they're only rated they're only rated a 70 on PFF.
Actually, if you look at the S&P Plus ratings and the echo rate.
Listen, I like Bill Connolly, so I'm not going to slander it.
I got something coming up later on that.
Okay, Mallory. Actually, I was going to go to I was treating this like the spotlight segment. We'll just go on to the next team we're going to talk about. Texas A&M. Carter. Texas A&M will not make the college football playoff because
lack of a downfield passing game. If they go with Marcel Reed the rest of the year.
Do you need to specify downfield passing game?
Any passing
game, I was about to say.
And I guess that's not fair of me to say if they stick with Marcel Reed, because it wasn't really happening with Connor Wegman either outside of the Missouri game. And Texas A&M's offensive, really the team formula is run the ball, stay ahead of the chains, shorten games, keep a lead. And now that Le'Veon Moss is injured for the year, they are running with Marcel Reed, quarterback run, Amari Daniels, who's very good, by the way. They're also already out Ruben Owens from the start of the year, and the primary backup now is E.J. Smith. So E.J. Smith, son of a legend, he's a grad transfer who has not really played much this year.
I'll say this. I think that when it comes to, we talk about the backfield as well, this wide receiver talent, I think, was severely under-addressed in the offseason.
Yes, they're not getting separation, and that's the issue now. If Le'Veon Moss is injured, 4th in the SEC in all-purpose yards, this really hurts their formula. And do they have a wide receiver to step up?
So here's why I think they're in a bigger conundrum, which is why I think they may be this is another position they may address in the offseason. I don't think Marcel Reed or Connor Wigman are the answer. I think this is what they have right now, right? If Mike Elko got a do-over, I think he would probably look in the spring for literally somebody. I'm not saying they're going to find, I'm not saying they're going to go get Will Howard from going to Ohio State. But I'm saying, like, I think they maybe are a little bit more aggressive because there was a discussion heading into this South Carolina game saying, oh, you got to start Marcel Reed, right? If you look at the wins that he had as a starter, and again, QB wins, I know, but it's indicative of the offense and the weapons they had around him and what they kind of had to do. Bowling Green, Florida, Arkansas. By the way, all through Bowling Green and Arkansas were by less than a score, right? Less than a touchdown. Florida was by 13, and I don't think DJ Lagway started that game. No, it was Graham Mertz. So you look at the games that he started and won, right? I know LSU he came in, but again, they didn't throw a pass. We had one deep shot. But because teams know, and then of course the South Carolina game, which they got blown out in, because teams know what he is as a passer, and he's not somebody, and neither is Connor Wigman, I want to specify, that's going to make up for those deficiencies on the outside, right? The one shot he had against LSU was a deep shot that he got, the wide receiver got past the secondary, and he hit him for over the top, and they ended up scoring. It wasn't him dissecting or Connor Wigman. Probably Connor Wigman against Missouri is probably the best game from any quarterback they've had this year. And I'm not saying that's a reason to start Connor Wigman, but I'm saying that that's looking more like a flash in the pan because they really didn't know who was going to play that game.
And Marcel Reed's best game of the year is when LSU didn't prepare for him.
Right.
Either.
Which
he
again,
came off the bench.
I think that's definitely on LSU because there was definitely film on Marcel Reed. So it wasn't like, oh, who's this guy?
Wait, what?
Yeah, the guy that started 3 games this year is pretty good. But I think that, yes, the downfield passing game is going to be a thing because now the running game is being impacted, which is why I think Marcel Reed may start the rest of the year because they need more running options, right? But this all goes back to, I don't think Connor Wigman was helped this year with losing Evan Stewart and a lot of their options not elevating their game. And it's not helped by Marcel Reed not having that upperclassman experience around him, and especially in the backfield with the injuries.
Good news is Jonte Cook changed his Twitter profile picture to Texas A&M.
Oh, dude, it's great. I love it.
Did he really?
Yeah,
So he's changed it to, he was Oregon 2 days ago, right? And then it was A&M yesterday. It's probably going to be Ohio State or something.
I think
today.
OU was in there at one point too.
Do you
It's going
think?
to be great. He's playing slot machines with his career.
Do you
I
think
love it.
Michigan State will be in there?
No.
Okay.
Please, Mallory would kill to be Jonte Cook's profile picture for one day.
Please just make it of Aiden Childs. Nick Marsh.
Texas A&M is 111th in the nation in passing offense. They've passed for fewer than 200 yards in 6 games. I just pulled up the stats here. Noah Thomas leads them with 3 receiving touchdowns. The next person is Theo Mellon-Orstrom, who I believe is a tight end. Yeah, he's a tight end. Every other wide receiver has either 0 or 1 receiving touchdowns on this year.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll say this, to be a little bit more optimistic for A&M fans, their losses right now are Notre Dame and South Carolina. Notre Dame's probably getting in. South Carolina is not a bad loss right now. They look actually pretty solid. I think Lenore Sellers got hurt in the last game, though. But they're actually looking pretty solid. They're 6-3 right now with games against Missouri, Wofford, and Clemson. They could finish 9-3. If they beat Texas, similarly to even if Texas loses to A&M, if A&M beats Texas, there's a scenario where they're on the outside, potentially, like maybe one of the first 2 out, right? 13th or something. But those 2 losses to Notre Dame and South Carolina are not bad enough. With wins over Missouri and LSU, which for some reason are still hanging around the rank. Like Missouri's has an outside shot at the playoffs still.
Oh,
Did you see what Eli?
yeah, no, I
you can't even get
said-
it out. It was so absurd what he said. You can't even finish your sentence.
He's like,
Yeah, go ahead.
We're still in the hunt for the playoffs.
The depressing part is
bro,
he's not
no.
wrong. He's
I
not
know
wrong.
that's not a bad
Look at the
point.
ranking, like we can talk about the rankings in a bit, but he's not wrong, and because of that, A&M's resume looks better because they've pummeled that team,
Right.
And so it's like they're still like A&M probably needs. I guess one more would probably do it, but if they can win out, which isn't unheard of, the schedule is not impossible for them to win out. There's a chance they're in, which is crazy.
And meanwhile, we're talking about SMU, and this just transitioned to this, and they're 8-1. We're like, like it's looking tight. Like I don't know,
Guys, yeah, so let's transition to the last
frustrating.
team in the college football rankings, 13th, SMU. Carter, SMU will not make the playoff because...
they're in the ACC.
Yeah.
That's a good enough answer for me.
That's basically it.
Okay, I don't
Unfortunately.
see a hole on this team. I tried to find one of like why they couldn't make it based on the football field. And the only thing I can really think of is if the ACC gets one bid and looking ahead. Now, they still got a lot of work to do. They got to win out. But if they play Miami in the ACC championship and Cam Ward does Cam Ward things, are they on the outside looking in with a loss to BYU, who's undefeated in the Big 12, and Miami, who's the ACC champion?
Yeah. That's the issue, right? It's going to be ACC and, if I'm being honest, the Big 12 right now, too, is looking like a one-bid league. You're looking at also the ACC. It's funny. The playoff is very hilarious to me because they use eye test when they want to.
Yeah.
And then when it's something that like doesn't make sense, everybody's like, well, actually, if you look at the formula, they resort to like some algorithm or say, well, actually, the strength of schedule is like, okay, well, whatever.
It was like Florida State last year.
Right.
You know, like they looked like they didn't. What I'm trying to say is like they looked great. Like they had an undefeated record, right?
Yeah.
But do they pass the eyeball test? It's like, you know, like they kind of pick and choose when they want to, you know.
Exactly. It was like, well, no, they lost their quarterback. We're not going to put them in, or something
exactly.
like that.
Right.
They think we have like squirrel memory.
Yes.
And it's like we can use one of 3 different reasons. We can use eye test, we can use record, we can use
All this data.
S&P plus data.
Right.
And you won't remember, like you can't contradict us because you won't remember the reasons we do for each team.
Correct.
So the reason why I bring that up is I think what they're going to do with the ACC is heavily skew the eye test. Because I did it with Duke, right? Where I was like, that's not a ranked team. You know, they were unbeaten or the one loss or whatever, and I was like, that's not a good team. And then, of course, the SMU ended up having 5 turnovers and still won the game. I think they're going to do that with a lot of the ACC. I think you look at Pitt, not sure if Pitt's that great. I think Louisville's a good team. I'll give Louisville. Clemson, they beat up on bad teams, and they got beat by a team, finally the first good team they played in like a month. I fear that's what's happening with the ACC, is that they're going to look at that and say, how good are SMU and Miami really? You know, Miami's been trying to lose a game for a month. They finally did, but they've been trying to lose a game to this conference, and for about a month now, SMU's beating up on this conference. But how good is it? Like, I'm thinking of their reasoning.
Shout out Haynes King, by the way.
Oh, definitely shout out Haynes
Georgia
King.
Tech is the National Cheez-It Team of the Week.
Hey, there we go.
By the way,
I love it.
So, shout out Haynes
I
King.
believe that was his first game back in a couple weeks.
It
too.
was. It was.
Yeah, so that was really cool for them to beat Miami. But again, like in a just world, both Miami and SMU get in. Like, I think those are, whether or not you think they're top to bottom the best teams, I think resume-wise, it speaks for itself.
They want you to think that the SEC and the Big Ten already are the Texas Rangers and the ACC is the Frisco Rough Riders, and I just don't think that's the case right now. Maybe it will be in the future when we're actually in a Power 2 scenario, but right now it's not.
I would much rather see Miami and SMU in the playoffs than 4 Big Ten teams with Penn State squeaking in as like the last Big Ten team in.
Or Missouri.
Because they don't deserve to be in. Or Missouri.
Or Missouri, yeah. That's
Sorry, Tepper.
I was going to say, like, look, like the fact that we're like, okay, if these two teams play, first of all, these two teams have to make the championship game because, like, if one of them...
They got to win out, yeah.
They got to win out. Both teams have to win out to make the championship game, obviously to play each other, which is probably just a play-in game de facto. If one of them loses, then you can guarantee that both teams aren't getting in.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can guarantee that there's no two-bid league for the ACC.
Yeah, because how many does the Big 12 get? You think?
One. They're going to get... They're
definitely getting one. Because they're beating up on each other right now, really.
Here's the other problem. There's a nightmare scenario. I don't think the Big 12 gets one in.
No, they've got to
get
one in.
It's got to be the winner.
It's got to be the winner of the Big 12 gets in.
Yeah.
No way they do that.
Yeah.
In the first one, are you kidding me?
That's what I'm thinking.
That's why
then everybody...
That's the only reason why I think they get it in. Is because it's the first one. I think based off resume, I don't think the Big 12... I will openly say right now, I don't think the Big 12 is very good this season. That doesn't mean that I don't think they should get, obviously, their champion in. I think that is the only reason why we can guarantee the Big 12 getting one in. Because of the first one.
It'd be so funny if they didn't get in, though. That'd be so
because
funny.
Because here's the thing. BYU is by far the best team right now in the Big 12. Probably not by far. Colorado's probably right there. Are those teams, if you're, again, I'm thinking as a playoff committee member, right? If you look at BYU and Colorado, and you look
eyeball
at
test
A&M,
right there. Yep.
LSU and Ole Miss, who are currently 14, 15, 16, are you like, well, you got to get BYU in? Or are you like, or are you more thinking like, oh, I guess we got to get BYU in because this is the first year. We can't really sneak one of these 3 teams in that have like 2 or 3 losses.
Yeah, maybe it's the latter. I just think, they have to put the Big 12 champion in. Or
I think there
will be pitchforks at the CFP playoff committee
1,000,
house, wherever they do, whatever hotel, whatever Bellagio they do this in. Yeah, there will be pitchforks outside of it.
Yeah. Well, they do it in Las Colinas, so like it'd be right.
They
down
do.
From
it's literally right down the road. Yeah.
The committee's right in Las Colinas and Irving. So I can just knock on their door and be like, hey, I might want to let BYU in.
Hey, are you not going to let the BYU in, the quarterback?
Shout out Retzlaff.
Shout out Jake Retzlaff.
But yeah, so we'll see. Obviously, the rankings come out tonight. We're recording on Tuesday, if you are listening to the podcast. So we'll see. But I had a chill go up my spine when I saw SMU at 13.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they're going to stay at 13 until they win the championship, and then they're going to flip them in because they're keeping them just on the periphery right now.
They got to be in the 12-team ranking tonight, though, you think? Or is it still Miami going to be?
Miami's still got to be in there.
Miami was 4 last time, so like what? They go to 8?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's weird. I had to, when the rankings, we'll move on to our spotlight games in a bit. I had 2 chills run on my spine when I saw SMU at 13, right outside, and when I saw Boise State at 12. Right in. Like, I'm like, are we serious? Are we doing this right now? Are we just going to put like the 12 seed? They're treating them like Cincinnati, where it's like, oh yeah, they're the 12. They were right there with the number 1 team in the country, guys. They almost beat Oregon. But they're like, nope, they're just barely in because they're the best team in the G5. That's a top 10 team. I don't care what anybody says. So
I agree.
Anyway, moving on to our spotlight games. Mallory, what do we got this week?
Let's start off with Texas. Number 5 Texas playing at Arkansas this Saturday at 11 a.m. You can watch it on ABC. Texas, 13.5 point favorites, over under 57.5.
All right, what do we think about this one? Because for a little bit, Arkansas looked like a team this year that was going to maybe do some stuff.
They were embracing the hog.
They were embracing the hog, all of it, and then last week happened, and Ole Miss exercised some demons when they realized that they can't drop any more games or they were going to miss out on the playoff after spending like $1 million in the portal, and they got nuked into the sun, 63-31 at home. Look, I think there were some things that Taylon Green was doing well with Arkansas. They had like a little bit of an offense going there. I don't know. I don't feel good about this.
So when we discussed Texas preseason, we're like, are they ready for the big bad SEC?
Yeah.
My take on it was I am not concerned with the top line SEC games because Texas always plays up to their competition.
Sure.
Forget about the Georgia game for a second.
No, I mean, they played up.
While I do this,
they played up for the most part.
The Arkansas game, I always thought should scare Texas fans the most because they said at SEC Media Day, Sark drops, Arkansas hates Texas more than they love themselves. And then they asked Sam Pittman, and you think Sam Pittman's going to be like, no, like we're focused on us, the coaching cliches. He's like, no, he's probably right. He's exactly right. Let me talk about the last 2 times Texas and Arkansas have played. They've only played 7 times in the last 30 years. The last 2 times are the 40-21 loss in Steve Sarkisian's first year. That was an actual nightmare trip to Fayetteville. That's the Hudson Card game, like threw him in the arena like Gladiator, basically. Yeah. And then 2014 when they lost 31-7 in the Texas Bowl, and Tyrone Swoops went 13 of 25 for 57 yards and an interception. 2 of the worst games in Texas program history in the last decade come at the hands of Arkansas. Yeah. So everyone acting that, hey, Texas is back after beating Florida on a 3rd-string walk-on quarterback at home, this is nothing like going to Fayetteville and playing Arkansas on the road, even though they're probably similar-ish caliber teams.
They're better than I thought they'd be this season, Arkansas. They still have an outside shot at 8 wins, I think. I think they have to win out. But, again, that's not something I thought I'd be saying. You know, Sam Pittman, for a lot of people, was going to be one of the first coaches fired. It's looking like he's going to hold on to his job. But I think they have figured something out to make things happen when they can on offense. Again, the downfield passing is not great. Taylon Green in the run game has been decent. The issue, I think, is going to come in the run defense. As we've seen, the issue for Texas, is running against Arkansas. As we've seen, Quinn Ewers has been prone to mistakes. We talked about the banged-up backfield for them as well. Arkansas has been pretty good in the front 7. Not great pass rushing specifically, but in the front 7 in the run game. If Texas, as we've seen, Sark prefers a balance. I think Quinn Ewers is best when he has a balance to lean on. When the game leans on him a little bit, I think that's when he starts to, not fluster, but that's when he starts to show his inconsistencies, right? That's my worry, is they try to establish a balance, which I think they should. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying go into the game not trying to run the ball. But I think if they go 3 and out, maybe if they don't have a touchdown in their first 2 drives, they start to press a little bit. The thing where it will benefit Texas is I don't think Arkansas's offense is good enough to then capitalize on the other end.
No, Arkansas's offense is not good enough to capitalize. Okay, Arkansas is 124th in the nation in passing yards. If Quinn Ewers' confidence isn't already 100% of the way back, it'll be back after this game.
Yes.
But does this game not scream that he's going to throw a first drive interception? Can you just picture? Everyone close your eyes.
Yeah.
Everyone close your eyes. Fayetteville's rocking.
Yeah.
Texas gets the ball deep in their own territory. It's like the worst interception you've seen. I think he's going to have a great game, but he's going to be a bad interception to start off.
It wouldn't shock me. I think Texas fans know he is who he is at this point. You know, he's going to there are going to be some games against Michigan where he just comes out and is the best player on the field, and you realize this guy can win the Heisman. And then there's going to be games like Georgia, obviously not always against Georgia, but where it's what? What some mistakes like that, some mistakes where you're like, is he a sophomore?
Well, and to his credit, he normally bounces back from that very well.
100%. No, he never had. And also, I don't think he has 2 bad games in a row either, or 2 mid games in a row. I don't want to say bad, but 2 average games. He usually bounces back in a pretty good way. And And yeah, the thing about him is that he's never been mentally shaken either.
No.
So I think I agree. I wouldn't be shocked if this was like a very early quarter, because I think Arkansas is going to come up with some things that maybe frustrate him. But I just don't see, the Texas defense has been sensational all year. I just don't see, even with how much I like Taylor Green in that offense, them being able to do much.
Arkansas's AD should try the Florida playbook of giving the vote of confidence to Sam Pittman. Like, he'll be back next year before this Texas game.
Yeah.
Like they did that for Billy Napier.
Yeah, exactly.
In Florida.
I think. Yeah, that turned out so great. Which, by the way, I think was more of a predetermined thing in terms of like, oh, we're gonna get blasted.
Me and Craven talked about it on the Sunday recap, but it's still so funny. The screen grab of him just looking out at the field, like in the sunglasses, next to the quote of like vote of confidence, and the 42-0 score at the bottom is so funny.
I think Taylor Green was knocked out of the Ole Miss game, but I think he is expected to be back for this.
Shout out Louisville.
Shout out Louisville. He is. Like I said, I'm a big fan of him. So
I am too.
He's been good this year. Mallory, what's next?
Up next, North Texas playing at UTSA this Friday at 7 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN2. UNT coming in as 1.5 point favorites. Over under is 72.5, and in parentheses it says hell yeah. Over.
Can you believe Craven no-showed for this podcast, Mallory, before your alma maters play each other?
Over. Give me the over on that.
And UNT's favored.
Give me the over.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Give me the over. Neither of these teams play defense. Look, I am very excited for this game because if you want to talk about, narratives being formed after this one, I think I put in the Slack after Craven posted the line. I was like, UTSA has the chance to do the funniest thing. In the season of nightmares, still beat UNT.
Still beat UNT.
In the season of nightmares that they lose to Tulsa, they lose to Rice, they go to Denton, or sorry, this is in the Alamo. Still, they beat UNT.
And they have to win this game if they want to go bowling, because they play Temple and Army to finish out. They're going to beat Temple, but Army is very tough.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Speaking of Army, by the way.
That was awesome. I'm sorry. That game last week was awesome. That was so dope.
You may not like it, but you have to respect it.
You do, man. That game was... I was watching that game, and it was like, oh, it's 14-3. I was like, dog, that might as well be 42-3. Like, this game, that 94-yard drive that took up the entire quarter.
The entire quarter?
UNT had the ball for 30 seconds.
Think about the North Texas whiplash of going from Army to UTSA, who can't run the ball at all. They actually throw 35 times a game. Who's going to have more passing attempts, Owen McCown or Chandler Morris?
Oh, it's going to be Morris.
Morris.
Chandler Morris.
Yeah, it's got to be Chandler Morris.
But still, with that being said, that's a good point because this game is all breaks off. Just no breaks at all. Like I mentioned, neither team can play defense. I will say, if UNT wants to find its run game, UTSA wants to find its run game, UNT is not a bad defense to play.
No.
If you can't do it versus these guys, then
you might have to go air raid the rest of the year. But let's talk about last week a little bit. Or I guess 2 weeks ago for UTSA. Big win over Memphis, right? Massive win. And UNT, again, it's Army is a ranked team. I think they're having a sensational year. So I don't want to say and UNT's down after it lost to Army. Where do you think both these teams are mentally? Because UNT they're still not in a bowl either, and that's kind of what we need to see in the second year of Eric Morris.
I think UTSA definitely has more positive momentum right now than North Texas does, but I think North Texas overall is still higher on themselves for the season they've had. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
I think so.
Yeah.
Where I am personally...
go ahead. 3 weeks ago, North Texas was riding high, we could win the AAC, and UTSA was like, this is going to be a nightmare. And now it's getting closer to each other, but North Texas is still ahead of them in the Vibes rankings.
Sure. I'll say this. I think the nightmare for UNT is dropping this game. Because even though they close out with East Carolina and Temple, games they should win, they should still go bowling. We looked at this stretch of games and we're saying, they're not going to win those, right? And it was in order for us to be proven that this is a much improved team, get one, right? I think getting one would have proved a lot. Memphis, Tulane, Army, UTSA. We looked at the stretch and we said, get one of them somehow. And if they get none of them, again, I think they still win out in their final two games. But all of a sudden, that becomes like a vibes thing where you're like, ooh, 4 straight losses to teams that you kind of hoped you were at least in the league of. And if there's a disappointing loss to ECU or somewhere in there, I'm not saying, again, I would still pick them to go bowling. But like at that point, you're on a 4-game losing streak. You have to win out. You kind of, and so like it's the snowball effect a little bit of vibes. So Mallory, I'm curious about your thoughts on this one because, of course, I wrote a piece about this last year. This is an underrated rivalry in Texas.
It really is.
The past 10 years or so, this has become like a pretty hated rivalry between both programs.
I remember in 2021 when I was still emceeing at North Texas, and I flew back early from my Thanksgiving family trip in Colorado just to MC the North Texas UTSA game.
Yeah.
And it was cold and it was rainy, but people still showed up for it, and people were chirping at each other.
Yeah.
So like I think it has grown into being one of the better rivalries in Texas. It really has. And I like, Eric Morris and Jeff Traylor. I think that's become a fun little kind of thing, and I don't know. I really like it. It's become a fun rivalry.
Yeah, like for me, it's one of those that like it doesn't matter how good or bad each team is.
It's one of those. It's one of those games. Yes, you're exactly right.
Because I think UTSA was unbeaten heading into 1 year, right? I think, or one loss or unbeaten 1 year, and then UNT beat them in Denton.
Yep.
Again, like it wouldn't, like I said, it wouldn't shock me even if UNT maybe had won one of the past couple games. It wouldn't shock me if UTSA pulled an upset this past, like if they were favored hitting it. So I don't know. I'm very fascinated by this game because both fan bases kind of have their own levels of anxiety right now.
Mm-hmm.
And whoever loses this game, I think it's going to ramp back up.
This is a Friday night game. Are you guys going to have it on like a phone somewhere, like during Texas football tonight?
Probably
on Friday night.
I'm going to be monitoring the score at the very least. And I know Jeff Traylor's going to be hating every minute of it because it's a Friday night and he's not watching a playoff game.
Well, and I was going to say, too, to flip it over to the UTSA side, if we're talking about bowling, they're sitting at 4 wins, and they have North Texas, and then they have Temple. So they have to win those next 2 games because they finish with Army. Yeah. So, like, a lot of chips on shoulders on this one. It's going to be fun.
I am very pointy. I was about to say, take the over this one because, like I said, neither team's very good at defense. UTSA is, I think, just realizing that they just need to cut the brakes now. UNT cut the brakes a long time ago.
This could hit the under, but if you take the under, you're insane.
Yeah,
correct.
There's
potential, but
yes. You hate fun if you take the under.
Yeah.
All right, Mallory. What is I believe our last spotlight game?
Last spotlight game of Week 12. Can't believe it's Week 12 already. Baylor at West Virginia, 3 p.m. Saturday. You can watch it on ESPN2. Baylor, 2.5-point favorites. The over-under's 59.5.
All right. So.
All right.
Speaking of 2 coaches that we would have thought probably would not have had a job.
No.
Heading into this season.
The How Are We Still Here Bowl.
How are we still here bowl?
Look, I'll say this. I know from what I understand, Neil Brown's buyout is pretty big, which is also another reason why they kept Dave Aranda, Baylor. But also, I think they also like Dave Aranda, so they don't want a reason to fire him.
Plug Craven's story today on TexasFootball.com talking about it's going to be maybe a quiet coaching carousel because of the impending revenue sharing and the large buyouts and teams are going to have to start spending a lot more money on the players, so you don't want to just pull ripcord on coaches just yet.
Yep, exactly.
Maybe no more Mel Tucker 9-year contracts after Kenneth Walker gives him 1 good season.
Okay, well, his contract ended for other reasons, Carter. They terminated him for other reasons other than that,
I wasn't talking about the termination. I was talking about giving the contract.
Oh, well, correct.
That wasn't a sideswipe. That was a T-bone.
Yeah, I was about to say, that was just running through the red light into the semi-truck. But I do.
Thanks.
Do we know if Garrett Green's starting this game? Because I know he's missed the last couple. Nico Markiel has started for West Virginia the past couple. So I don't know if that obviously plays a little bit of a factor because this is still a West Virginia team that needs, I think, 1 more win. I think they're 5-4 right now.
Yeah, both teams are 5-4.
So, okay, so there is something like. Obviously, I don't think there's a coaching change coming for either program this offseason, but you would like to roll into the offseason with good vibes of having extra practices, playing the bowl, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. For the first time since 2016, Baylor has rushed for over 250 yards in 3 consecutive games. We talked about Texas high school football at the beginning of the show, but Bryson Washington, Dawson Pendergrass, Richard Reese in there as well. 3-star running back is what we've called him before.
Yep.
All the Texas high school football guys have really brought balance back to the Baylor offense. And speaking of the offense, they're now 3rd in the Big 12 in scoring. Is Jake Spavital the best assistant coach in Texas? I think it's him, Scott Simons. Like if we did a Skylar Cassidy's in there.
Skylar Cassidy would be, yeah.
If we did a Texas-only Broyles Award for best assistant coach, I think Jake Spavital, from where Baylor was to where they are now, might be one of the best in Texas.
I think he's on a short list. If I had to name 5 off the top of my head, no order: Pete Kwiatkowski, Spav, Simons, Cassidy. I mean, there's probably discussion for the next one, but there's no guarantee about who the next one is. So I think that I would probably lean, I'd probably lean that as far as those 4. But to your point, yes, he's made things better in the run game. He's obviously made things better for their quarterback, Sawyer Robertson. The offensive line looks, again, this is an offensive line that we were worried about. It was just bad. And they've been fine. They haven't been stellar, but like they've been enough to help generate yards in both phases of the offense. I'll say this: I think West Virginia has always been a team that I cannot pinpoint every year.
They're slippery.
We thought Neil Brown was the most fired
really
man
are.
last season, right? And they come out, they win 7 games, 8 games, something like that. It was like something out of nowhere.
Yeah, they had a really surprising. They're almost like Oklahoma State-esque in the way of they always underperform or overperform expectations. They never meet them.
Yeah, except Neil Brown doesn't wear an OAN shirt when he's fishing.
Well, true. Yeah, they're one big difference.
There's one big difference. But so I'm looking at West Virginia's remaining schedule: Baylor, UCF, Texas Tech. It's not. I think they beat UCF. UCF's probably not that good right now. But if they lose this game, similarly, we talked about teams needing that bowl win, right? Tech's going to be trying to scrounge whatever they can for their remaining, in their last game of the season. I look at Baylor's remaining schedule, playing the schedule game because it's late. Houston, Kansas. 2 teams that have found their mojo a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Kansas
don't
looked
really now.
Really good last week.
Yeah.
Houston,
Jeff Grimes, don't look now. He's figuring it out.
Literally.
That would be
the funniest
amazing
thing
if he goes,
ever.
Oh, it's in Waco too. Oh, Jeff Grimes coming back. He's like, you guys thought.
Welcome back.
Heisman Jalen Daniels is about to come
I'm
back. With a vengeance. Houston, of course, is a Venus flytrap, just waiting for you to think that they're a bad team and just snatch it right up.
Well, the flytrap's a little bit damaged because Willie Fritz broke his 2 fingers right now.
Listen, that's a guy who doesn't care. I love it. How old is he? How did he break 2 fingers in practice?
He broke it in the Utah game. I think probably just giving high fives and tapping guys on the helmet.
Yeah.
I don't know if they said how he broke it.
64 years old, and he's just breaking fingers because he's so hyped.
What a G, man. What a G.
Yeah, he's in a splint now, but he came out in the post-game
That
press
rocks.
conference and had him like taped up. And I was like, this guy's amazing.
He probably
I
just
love
went to
this
the
guy.
trainer. He's like, tape me up.
Do to rock Willie Fritz.
He does rock.
Do to rock Willie
On this
Fritz.
one, though, give me Baylor just because, again, I've thought West Virginia is bad or like mid or whatever. And if I think that Baylor's turning the corner, this is the game, even though it's on the road, this is the game I think they should be able to pull out. So.
I agree.
All right, Mallory, we got the lightning round coming up next. We're going to spend a little bit more time on it, not our one sentence because it's a light show. So,
Lightning round. Let's get to it. Texas A&M versus New Mexico State, 6:45 on Saturday. You can watch it on SEC Network. Texas A&M 40.5-point favorites, over under 54.5.
Well, we said we were going
to be pretty.
yeah.
We said we were going to spend some more time on these. I don't know if
Not
we need to
this
spend
one.
much time.
Not this one. Not this
No,
one.
A&M should punt them into the sun. If they want to find a semblance of their passing game, this is the game to do it in.
Yep.
New Mexico State's not very good. Their whole team's in Nashville right now playing for Vanderbilt. And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
they're not very good. So this is a game to get the running game in order. Their whole team's in Nashville.
They really
right
are.
now. Eli Stowers is even in Nashville.
That's so true.
Yeah, so
They're all on Broadway right now at the
all-
Justin Timberlake bar, hanging
they're
out
having
during this
fun. They're
game.
like, remember when we were in Las Cruces last year?
That's fantastic.
So this is a game to figure out who your running back's going to be, right? Who your running backs are going to be, not just one. And then to figure out if Marcel Reed in the downfield passing game, whatever it is, to get some reps in. So that's all I want.
What is Terry Bussey going to play some running back?
We might be getting to that
so.
point. They've been putting him as like a gadget player, and of course in the return game,
Wide receiver a bit.
They may. I don't know if. I mean, this might be the game to do it, honestly, because I don't know if you want to bust him out against Texas.
This would definitely be the game.
at running back.
This would definitely be the game to do that.
I wouldn't be shocked if that's a package that they roll out. If like him and Amari Daniels is like a wildcat or something. So I would love that. I don't know. I have no insight from practice, but why not? Why not? He's less than a year out from playing quarterback, so.
Mike Elko gives us a call. We want to ask about your Terry Bussey usage.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
please.
literally. Okay. SMU playing Boston College at 2:30 Saturday, ESPN. SMU, 16.5 point favorites. The over-under is 53.5. This one's interesting to me.
This one is. So
very interesting.
Castellanos, should mention, got benched for Boston College. I believe he's actually off the team now, or at least he took a leave.
Taking a couple days away.
Yeah, took a couple days away. So I don't know. Boston College looked good with him at one point.
Well,
but go ahead.
Duncanville legend Grayson James has taken over.
Yeah, formerly of FIU.
That's right.
Of course, played, I believe, in one state championship game with Duncanville. Look, SMU, I have no reasons to doubt them at this point, right? At one point we were talking about, heading into the year, is the running game going to be that great? Is the pass catching going to be, what was the quarterback situation? They've answered so many of those. I have no reason not to take them and think they're going to win this comfortably.
I think so too.
Well, we spent the whole first half of the show getting pretty mad about them not making the college football playoff, so it could all go to waste if they lose this game. If they trip themselves
I will say
up.
one thing that I think the reason why they will win this comfortably, Pinstripe Bowl revenge.
True. The Wasabi Fenway Bowl.
Wasabi Fenway Bowl.
Sorry, apologies to New York. I confused you with Boston. Wasabi Fenway Bowl revenge game, because after that game we were like,
at the
is
baseball
SMU
stadium
ready for the ACC? And all of a sudden they could look at that and be like, so y'all ready for the ACC? We're going to punt this team into the sun.
Yeah, looking back, that was probably an overreaction to be like them playing on Wednesday at 9 a.m. in Fenway Park. Was like, I don't know if they're ready for Power 4.
That's fair.
And I was leading that train. I was like, if you can't do it in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl, can you do it?
I think we all were.
November?
Yeah, I think we all were.
In Stoke. Look, I was about to say we all were, because at that point it became a trend, right? Oklahoma, TCU, Boston. It was like, again, not the best barometer. So like, you couldn't beat Oklahoma, but like, at that time, the only power programs you played, you lost to. Mm-hmm. So I think it was more of a trend as opposed to individually. But regardless, I think SMU, there's a lot of these players that remember that game. We're like, all right, yeah, let's show how ready we are right now.
Mm-hmm. Houston playing at Arizona this Friday at 9:15. You can watch it on FS1. Arizona 1.5 point favorites. Over/unders 44.5.
Arizona's not that good.
Well, their quarterback and wide receiver. Well, quarterback kind of. Wide receiver is good.
Yes, wide receiver's great.
Other than that,
quarterback is good at when throwing to said wide receiver.
That's it.
And other than that, they have not much else.
Nope. I'm very fascinated by this game. Houston still in the hunt for a bowl. Arizona, Baylor, and BYU. Again, not an easy road, but still a road. They need this one, though. Obviously, they need to pull an upset if they want to go bowling. I think they can get it done. I think they will get it done. I'll say it that way. Arizona, their losses... Actually, I'm going to say their wins. Their wins are not good. New Mexico, Northern Arizona, and Utah, who we now know is not good. Mm-hmm. All the good teams they've played this year, they've lost to. Almost by double digits every single time. So I will gladly think that Houston can scrape this one out. In my heart, I think they're going to scrape this one out too. I think this is a completely different team than they were at the beginning of the season. But can't you close your eyes and kind of see them losing 24-0 as well? Like them just putting up a stinker. If they just forget to cover Teteroa McMillan, yes. But like, even what teams are realizing with Arizona is just let Teteroa McMillan get his. Mm-hmm. Like he's averaging in their losses 161 yards, 131 yards, 202 yards. These are losses, by the way, that he's having these receiving numbers. So I think teams are just like, yeah, it's fine. He's going to go top 10 in the draft. We don't care. As long as they literally can't throw it to him every play. They can try, but we're going to get some off of Noah Fafita. So I could see them losing, but I just don't see them losing big. This team has not lost big in a while.
All right.
It's also such a late kick too. 9:15.
Welcome to Arizona, baby.
I know.
Welcome to the new Big 12.
Yeah, no kidding.
This is what happens when we let all those West Coasters in.
I know, it's crazy.
Man.
At least be good if we're going to stay up that late, too. Like, Arizona State's at least being fun. They're good. Cam Scatabo, I know he was here last week, but, like, Cam Scatabo's good. Sam Levitt's good. That defense is good. At least make it entertaining if you're going to make a state, though. Colorado's being good, too. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
Give us something good here.
Texas State playing Southern Miss this Saturday at 6 p.m. You can watch on ESPN+. Texas State, 26.5 point favorites. The over/under 56.
Speaking of teams that stink, Southern Miss stinks.
Transition.
Homecoming for Texas State. They're bringing out the Southwest Texas branding again. So
let's go.
This should be a romping, and I'm not joking. Last week was a nice, surprising, convincing victory. ULM, of course, is a surprising team that I didn't expect to be in the bowl hunt, but they are, and Texas State handled them for the most part. The only question is going to be who plays a quarterback, because Jordan McLeod did play. We did not finish the game. after getting injured in the last game against Louisiana. I almost said Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson.
Now that would be really interesting.
Awesome.
That'd be great.
Current Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
60 plus. No. Brad Jackson.
He'd still get 50 yards at least.
Probably against Southern Miss at least.
Yeah, true. Actually, 100.
Brad Jackson played, which I think is a very interesting indication of where Texas State's quarterback pecking order is, because there are upperclassmen on the roster at that position. We'll see. I'm very fascinated to see if that's similar dual quarterback thing. The other thing to watch, Texas State one game from going back-to-back bowl eligibility seasons. I think that's a big thing. I think they want to round out the year great. I think they have a big game against South Alabama at the end of the year, but Southern Miss, Georgia State are back-to-back. Got to get those two games, because then you could still, if you win out or even if you win those two, you could still look at it and say, improvement on last year. Not necessarily the you wanted, but improvement.
I said I was going to bring up the Bill Connolly SP Plus rates.
Yeah.
So last night, checking my phone, Colton McWilliams, friend of the program, love Colton McWilliams.
Record,
yeah. He tagged all of us in a tweet that was a very well actually tweet, and saying that Texas State is actually the top G5 team in Texas.
Yeah.
If you look at the SP Plus ratings, and then Craven put him in the body bag and just sent the score of the Sam Houston Texas State game.
Yeah.
So that was very funny.
Honestly, all that shows to me is that Texas State's underperformed.
Yeah.
Texas State's underperformed this year, because I don't disagree that talent-wise, sure, but look at that first half against Sam Houston. Awesome. They didn't finish. Got to finish. I don't care if Sam Houston looks like butt sometimes on offense. It's effective.
You can't.
They're winning games. Can't fake the scoreboard.
Yeah, you can't lose games in college football and still win.
Exactly.
Trent Dilfer.
He's losing a lot of games. Sorry.
He sure is.
UAB stinks.
They do. Speaking of the best G5 team in Texas, Sam Houston playing one of the worst teams in the nation, I should say, Kennesaw State, Saturday at 2 p.m. You can watch it on ESPN Plus. Sam Houston, 13.5-point favorites. Over-under is 42.5. I think that line is that way because I think we talked about it before the podcast. We don't know who's going to take over for Kennesaw State because their coach got fired.
We do know now. Okay, so backstory on this. Kennesaw State is in turmoil now. They fired...
It's kind of self-inflicted turmoil.
Okay,
right.
So let me unpack this here. That Brian Bohannon, the head coach, the only head coach, I believe, it announced he had stepped down. He then
the program announced
he stepped down. He said, that's not true, I got fired. The AD said, I had a misunderstanding, and told him he could say he stepped down, but he chose not to say that.
The AD came out and said, sorry, I'm trying to delete it. sorry, guys. By the way, Brian Bohannon, who led them to, he's the one that's been, you mentioned, their only head coach, transition coach as well from the FCS, where they were a playoff team, consistent playoff team in the FCS. 12 wins, 11 wins, 4 wins during the COVID year, 11 wins as their final year of the FCS. They were a transition team with 5 wins and then 3 wins and now 1 win. But that 1 win coming against Liberty, the question becomes, what did you want him to do?
This is like if Sam Houston fired Casey Keeler last year.
Yeah, I think so. That's fair. Yeah, because Sam Houston's last year as a transition team was like about 5-6 wins, right? And then, of course, last year was last year. Yeah, basically. This is like, hey, okay, cool, you didn't win in your first year.
Which would have been insane if Sam Houston did that.
Right, exactly, which would have been insane. As we're seeing now, they beat Liberty, guys. They beat the team that was in the New Year's Six last year, right? Mm. And they're like, cool, who'd you lose? I forgot. They lost last week, but like, who cares? They weren't expected to win this year. And so they fired him. That's the only shot I'm giving him in this game is the new head coach bump, as we're seeing, as we've seen with Rice.
So I said I didn't want to take this spread until I did some more research on the interim coach, Chandler Burks.
That's right.
I've done extra 2 minutes of research. I'm not worried about it. Okay. Sam Houston's going to roll.
You looked
this
at
game.
it, you're saying bum. All right.
I looked at a picture. I looked at his name.
Overrated.
And it's fine. Sam Houston's going to roll.
Overrated, Cats by 90.
Well, you worry like the interim coach, like Pete Alomar, whose only head coaching job was in Mexico, is going to come in and work magic.
Yeah.
Or like Darren Rizzi in the NFL, who comes in for the same. The Rizzler.
The Rizzler in the NFL.
You get these characters that come in and have these heroic one-game like performances.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it from Chandler Burks.
I will say, I think it happens after this week because they got FIU and La Tech, which are great bounce-back games if you want a head coaching bump, which also Makes me very frustrated that they fired Bohannon now, because they could very much end the year with 2 back-to-back wins, FIU and La Tech, and they were like, we can't let that happen. We got to axe this now. But yeah, this is going to be, I'll say take the under, because even if Sam Houston controls this game, this can be like 21-3.
Yeah.
Similar to UNT versus Army, where it's like, yeah, it's fine. We don't need to score.
Yeah.
So.
And then the teams that have buys, TCU, Texas Tech, Rice, and UTEP.
Oh, Tech
That's
needs
it.
that bye. Tech desperately needs that bye.
Faux show.
Need some orange slices too after last week. So, alrighty, that'll do it for us. Of course, Craven and Carter will be back Sunday morning with your recap episode. Definitely before all the NFL games kick off. Please check out, as Carter mentioned, please check out Craven's column on the coaching cycle or the lack thereof we may see on TexasFootball.com. Now, check out Carter's piece. By the way, I'm going to plug some of your high school stuff as well. New Waverly, their quarterback, Ryson Nunez, I should say, one-armed quarterback playing high school football, playoff high school football, I should mention. So Carter did a really good story on that on TexasFootball.com now, as well as the class of 2025 for all you recruiting heads, the all-sleeper team, and the all-uncommitted team from Greg Powers as well. For you recruiting necks who want to text your coach or DM them on Twitter saying, why aren't we offering so-and-so from this? Carter Yates says this kid from Frisco Emerson's a star. Why aren't we giving him a scholarship, Steve Sarkisian? You can look up those names right now on TexasFootball.com. I'm sure Sark would love to know who he's missing out on as far as the recruiting trail goes. Also, remember, be sure to check out Craven's book, Dave Campbell's Guide to Texas College Football on TexasFootball.com. All your info. Lastly, for all of our playoff coverage, TexasFootball.com/playoff.
Yeah.
Everything will be there. Also, check the website for tonight with the college football playoff rankings. Craven will have a piece up for the updated Texas rankings in that as well.
Go SMU.
Go. Oh, okay. I was like, why'd you say that? And I was like, oh, because the rankings. I thought you were just generically saying go.
No, because the rankings.
That's fair. Okay, let me look up Rutgers' schedule real quick. I
already got it. It's Maryland. They're playing Maryland. They got 5 wins.
We need it.
They need to win.
A huge week for us.
Huge week for us. We need it because they're going to lose in the last week. So that's against
Mike
us.
Elko, give us a call. We can talk about the Terry Bussey run package game. Go Rutgers, beat Maryland.